evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is May 5th, 2022. This is the gathering of the Horsehead Central School District Board of Education for the required public hearing on the 22-23 proposed budget that will go to vote on May 17th, 2022. From 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night, the polls will be open at the South Gym at Horsehead High School. This time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our board president, Ms. Christine Devlin.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Can you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first up on our agenda is to introduce our board candidates running for this year's Board of Education. So I'll Tom, if there's certainly you'd like to do this, I'll just introduce and you can stand up.
Can you do it in the order they are?
Yep, got it. Okay. So our first candidate is Mr. Daniel Christmas. Our second candidate is Mr. Asvar Faroki. Our third candidate is Ms. Liz Odell Welling. And our fourth candidate is Ms. Marianne Corbett, who is unable to join us this evening due to a personal commitment. Okay. So we will follow up after this meeting with our candidates forum. So we're very excited to have our board candidates in attendance this evening, and we look forward to the candidates forum following our budget presentation.
And if I may add, just as they're getting the budget presentation up, technical difficulties, what we'll do is bring the candidates down. I believe Mr. Christmas will be here. I believe Mr. Christmas would be here in the first position. Second position is Asvar or Ozzy. And then Liz will be here. And then Marianne would be in the fourth position. We only have an opening statement and closing statement because she had a family commitment outside of the state. So as we get ready for that, that's once we transition, we'll just need a little time, but thank you for your patience.
Okay, next up is the public hearing on our 2022-2023 budget. We are just waiting for the projector to come. I think everybody's looking around for where's the projector, just like I am. And I do believe it's up there. Where did it go? The wonderful part is having an IT director here. He's already had a backup plan, so unfortunately the projector that was working about 15 to 20 minutes ago for some reason is not highlighting, so just give us a minute. He will reconnect this computer to that one. Do you need this computer located differently or? I will make it work. Or do you need this in? Sue, if we can adjust this so it will pop up just as the drawing. This way. Oh, okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now that we have our IT at least in place, let me start off by saying this is our presentation that we've built over the past several months. At this point, the Board of Education has approved this budget to go before the voters. Today is a public hearing where we present it and the board takes any types of comments in regards to it. But at this point, please understand the budget does not get changed because it is set to go to the voters. As we start out with our first slide, we give you the projected state aids for 22-23. In total, our aid went up by about $1.8 million from the state in the various categories, with a reduction in BOCEs of about $369,000, and that is from changing some of our business operations. In our next slide, for the board, we talk about what the New York State maximum allowable tax levy limit is. This is a calculated formula that was implemented under Governor Cuomo in 2011. It limits property tax growth to 2% or the rate of inflation, which unfortunately, if it goes above 2%, we're capped at 2%. And in times like now, you can see it can become problematic. However, because of this factor, our budget is developed with this tax levy limit in play. And on the next slide starts the calculations, and you can see the yellow area where last year the inflationary limit was 1.23. This year it's at a 2%, which is the maximum amount, and that allows for the district's tax levy to grow from 40.5 to 41.7, as the calculation shows, or allows the district with a 50% plus one approval of a vote to raise the levy from one year to the next up by 2.97%. We always tell everybody the levy is not what impacts taxes. The levy is just the amount of percentage change from one year to the next. What affects taxes is actually the tax rate, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So right now, this proposed budget is at the 2% levy limit in New York State or below, and only requires a 50% majority plus one vote to approve the budget. On the next slide, our tax cap calculation continued using that information with what we know from last year. Our tax rate went down last year by negative 0.53% was the tax levy change. Sorry, I got that confused. Our tax levy for this year is 2.97. Both of those were the 2% calculations from one year to the other, so you can see how they can wildly change. What does the 2.97 mean? At full value tax rate, which we are required to calculate our processes for the district at, and that's a tax rate on per thousand, and that's called tax on true. But that tax rate at 2.97 with a conservative estimate will range from $16.80 to $16.22, or the tax rate is already expected and estimated very conservatively to decrease by at least 3%, possibly up to negative 6.36% or more. What that means, estimated tax rate changes anywhere at that 3%, about $52 per $100,000 value home to $110 per $100,000 value home. We do it by 100,000 because that is a multiplier. If you have 150,000, you can take that, divide it in half, add the two together. If you have a $300,000 home, you can times it by 3. Hopefully it helps everybody understand that they can sort of calculate the rough estimate of what this will be. In addition, this rate does not include any STAR rebates or STAR credits coming back from the state, so that also helps our homeowners, and hopefully they would see that this is a direction that most individuals that want to support public entities would find beneficial. But that remains to be for the voters. Our next slide levy versus tax rate. You can see in the tax levy column, back in 2006 as an example, the tax levy was 6.75% from one year to the next year. That's how much it changed. But the tax rate actually only increased 0.05%. So you can see the tax rate then per thousand, that tax on true, was $19.40 back in 06-07. You can follow it all the way down, and this will be online as well, but you can see the arrows. The tax levy to tax rate trend has been conservatively and followed up each year when the tax rates are put into place in August, as always being primarily in a declining fashion. That means the wealth of the district is consistently going up, the value of the district is going up, and the share of the support of public services is being shared over a variety of the assessments. If you notice on the bottom, even last year, we had a negative 0.53 tax levy decrease, but our tax rate decreased by 3.78% in August. Overall, this year, you can see our tax levy is increasing by 2.97. The estimate is that it will decrease by negative 6.36. You can see we try to pride ourselves on giving you our best guess estimate, because this will be set in August, but the estimate is based on our communications with assessment offices, county assessment offices, and our tax force. And we try to be very proud that we take most conservative. It could even go lower than this. The big thing is, if by chance we hit 6.36, our overall tax per thousand is 16.22. That will be the lowest in the entire southern tier GST posting region. And most people do not know that. Next slide. Just to give you a comparison of the other school districts, 3 in Chemung plus the largest in Corning. 2018, we were at 1798. 2019, we were at 1804. We dropped slightly in 2021 to 18. Last year, we had a big adjustment to 17.32, and our estimate is somewhere between 1680 to 1622. You can see comparable, the same exact tax rate for each school district is apples to apples. In Corning, just last year, they charged $22.86 on the same $100,000 home that we charged $17.32. In Elmira, they charged $21.65. In Elmira Heights, $21.65, and in Elmira, $20.88. If you take the next closest one for us, which is the $20.88, if we raise that amount of rate in this district, it would create an additional $9.5 million that the budget would have. We're not saying we need that, but that's how you compare. We don't know what theirs are going to do. You can see some of them are trending down, some of them are trending up a little. We just show you ours, but we want you to understand that whether you're in Corning, whether you're in Elmira, Elmira Heights, if you're buying a house, this is what people look for, and that's why we believe our real estate has been turning over exceptionally well, especially in the past couple of years. In addition, our next slide is the revenue comparison. You can see our revenue, our year-over-year budget growth is about 3.3% in revenue, $2.8 million, and if you go to the next slide, our budget comparison is 3.3%. The reason being is the budget and the revenue have to come in alignment, and that's how we balanced over the past 4 or 5 months. You will see some negative numbers, you'll see some increased numbers. The biggest number you see is the debt service, that is because of construction. But notice we are doing construction and our budget and the tax rate is going down. So you're going to have that because we're getting more increased funding from the state for our construction. In addition, you'll see interfund transfers. That's a lot of corrections within the district on budget lines, trying to get the budget to really coordinate with what we actually expend money on. As well as transportation, you see an increase. Now that the pandemic, we're coming out of it, and more transportation is coming, there's some increased aid there. That will be something that we have to watch and keep an eye on as we go forward. After the budget comparison, we go to our next slide. Our reserve funds are still very solid. We are using similar reserve funds from one year to the next. And the reason being is that's to help support the budget, but also control how we come off the years when the district was expending over $6.5 million a year on reserves. So this has been a stable plan, and we've been drawing down on that this year with the unknown. We chose not to, and that supports the budget even with a tax rate decrease. Our next slide is what does this budget include? All current educational programs are carried over from one year to the next. They are, of course, based on current needs and enrollment. If enrollment does change, we may have to change something, but it's not because of financial situation. Additional funds for instructional equipment, piloting the middle school alternative education program with BOE, that's a new program, piloting programs for girls wrestling and girls flag football to get more opportunities for our ladies, and our sports programs to have opportunities that normally would not be provided, and a direction the state wishes to go to. Secondary music program expansion, which is also based on enrollment, and we are hoping to maintain that enrollment, but also we want to give extra services in the area of choral because they've never had lessons as well as try to be as strong as possible in our music education program. We are also starting our initial planning for sustainability of positions such as a social worker, reading intervention teacher, teaching assistants, and student laptops funded by the federal pandemic aid. What we mean by that is because we got the aid, we can expend it, but we do not have a plan to sustain it. We either get it and then we cannot replace it, or we develop a sustainability plan over the next couple of years to maintain that going forward. And that's on the IT side, and that's what we're trying to do. It includes a speech teacher, formerly a BOCES position that we're bringing in-house. We had a problem with athletic training services with Guthrie. We will now have 2 training services in this, one from Arnott and one from Guthrie, so that hopefully we never have the problem of not being able to find somebody again through their hospital organizations. And then high school student coverage needs during lunch period. We've had a long-standing tradition where the kids would go to lunch for 40 minutes and then they would have an activity period where they had to find a home for 40 minutes. That is not how a high school should operate. It's been a long-standing practice that we are trying to eliminate, make sure everybody has the opportunities, either a study hall, activity period that's supervised so that we know where our students are each and every minute of the day while they're with us. So that's what the budget includes. Our next slide tells you our budget-to-budget history. You can see mainly the right-hand column, 4%, 5%, 3%, 0.3, 0.9, and going down the history. Have wide swings. Unfortunately, in education, we rely on funding from either a local source or a state source, and that makes those swings go wide at times, and we have to adjust. Our next slide is our reserve funds currently, what we have, and if you can see, pretty much our reserve funds are strong from one year to the next. We're projecting only a reduction of about $500,000 in our reserves. We're still very healthy, and that is mostly in our retirement contributions to ERS, and we will look at that and see to make sure that we continue our strength and position. We have about $3.4 million in our budget in an unassigned fund balance from year to year that the state allows us to keep for emergency needs, and then we have that assigned fund balance that you saw earlier of $1 million that we've allocated. In addition, our next slide will tell you about the votes and the propositions. Our proposition number 1 is the adoption of the 22-23 budget as presented and approved by the Board of Education for the district to consider. Proposition 2 is the purchase of buses, and our proposition is to acquire 7 full-size buses, 1 4-wheel drive transportation vehicle at a maximum aggregate cost of $1.4 million. And this is on the 5-year bonding cycle that we've already established and is regularly in place in our budget, and with state education aid to minimize any cost to the district. In addition, we have proposition number 3, which is the establishment of a capital reserve fund. People will say, why do you need another one? You just did a big capital project. Well, this is to start saving for a 3rd capital project to hopefully try to complete what we currently are doing. We've always said that we need to take 3 to really overhaul the entire district. We have used 2 capital reserves for each one of the projects right now of about $10 million, and this is to set up the basic savings account for the district. If we have surpluses, we could tuck it away so that we could use it to offset local share in any future projects. This is something that in the past has been approved by voters. We want to get as much of a start on it as possible so that if we go to another project 5 years down the road, we have time to actually fund it through any type of savings or surplus in the district. So those are the three propositions. In addition, the Board of Education elections are being held. Members of the Board of Education, you get to vote for up to 3 or write in a name of someone else you would like on the school board. The candidates in the order that they will appear is Daniel Christmas, Asfar Aziz Faruqi. Did I say that okay? Got close. Liz Odell Wheeling, Marianne Holleran Corbett. And they're in that order, and at the conclusion of that night, the 3 top vote getters will get the seat for 3 years on the Board of Education. At this point, I just need to remind everybody, the budget vote for the Board of Education election is Tuesday, May 17th, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the high school South Gym. For information on absentee ballots, call 607-739-5601, extension 4260, or just call the superintendent's office and we will get you in touch with the appropriate people so that you can participate in our vote. And that's the only thing that I can say, is the district cannot take a position either way. We just encourage everyone to come out and vote, as this is an avenue that people can really weigh in governmental-wise with the direction of its community. At this point, that is the conclusion of the public hearing budget presentation. I will turn it over to the president of the board, Ms. Christine Dale, to take any comments or thoughts and suggestions on the budget, but this is not a time where any changes will be made to the budget.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. I'd also like to thank everybody in the district who played a role in putting together our budget proposal for the 2022-2023 school district. It happens over the course of several months with lots of input, lots of people working on it. So thank you to everybody who played a role in that. We really appreciate it. So I'll open it up to anybody who has any comments related to the budget before we move on. If anybody from the community has any comments, feel free to come up to the podium. Okay, I'll take silence as everybody's good. So I just want to reiterate what Dr. Douglas said. Please, we're not going to have a position on how you should vote, but please come out and vote. It's everybody's right to vote, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come out and vote on Tuesday, May 17th.
If I can just interject, one is I just got a Katie Bezzetti message. She could not be here. We, unfortunately, in the district office, just like every place else, has to deal with health and pandemic items throughout, and out of abundance of caution, she was watching and told me that I did okay and well done and short. So she would have been much shorter than me. But I just want to thank her entire office, because normally they would do it. And they really do carry the weight load on this throughout the last 5 months. So I just wanted to extend my thanks to all of them as well as the staff. Additionally, we do have one item for action on there. Okay.
Yep. So our miscellaneous items for action, we have 5.01, the appointment of an impartial hearing officer. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our public hearing so we can move to the candidates forum. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes our Board of Education meeting for the public hearing on the 22-23 budget that will go before the voters on May 17th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the high school South Gym. All individuals that are residents that are over the age of 18 and resided in the district for 30 days or more are eligible to come out and vote, whether they're a registered voter or not. We'd encourage everyone to come out and weigh in on the community's education. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody to please bear with us online as we set up for the candidates forum. Thank you.